Alright, let me set the scene. You and a friend are playing a fighting game. Marvel vs. Capcom 3, specifically. Also, side note, I will never forget what Infinite did to this series. But back to the game. You get to the character select screen, and both of you begin selecting your characters, and you see that they pick a certain character. And when the match begins, this happens. Complete and utter devastation. And now you're left with one question. Who the hell is Amaterasu? Well, okay. Just from the side that Amaterasu's on, we can tell that it's from a Capcom title. But what kind of game is this wolf even from? Or, at the very least, that's what I thought. But to answer this, we have to look at a past generation of games. The PlayStation 2 is a console that doesn't need an introduction. It was a console that dominated the generation it was released in and continued to hold strong even into the next generation of consoles. And it was a beast of a console. And it was on this beast of a console that Amaterasu's game, Okami, would be released. Okami was developed by Clover Studio, a studio that I'm sure many haven't heard of. Clover Studio was a studio that was created within Capcom as a subsidiary, led by notable developers in the gaming scene, with the three main figures being Asushi Inaba, Shinji Mikami, and Hideki Kamiya. The latter, I'm sure is recognized from maybe, him being a founder of just a little game studio called Platinum Games, and also from his works in the Resident Evil and the Devil May Cry series. This was a company that thrived on independence, originality, and creativity, with the studio primarily focused on creating new IPs that had a creative flair to them. Clover Studio created the God Hand and the Beautiful Joe series, with both games being considered sleeper hits that deserve far more praise than they did at the time of release. God Hand is a beat 'em up that follows a martial artist that fights defending his companion with a divine right hand recognized as the God Hand. Beautiful Joe is a side-scroller beat 'em up that centers around the protagonist, Beautiful Joe. Beautiful Joe is a movie fan that is turned into a superhero, gaining the powers of cameras and VHS effects. The game has a very interesting cel-shaded art style that gives the game a lot of flair, even having Dante as a playable character due to Kamiya being the director for the first Devil May Cry game. This was the series that Clover Studio would produce the most of, but sadly, that would not last long. Clover Studio was dissolved due to profits and the low reception that the games the studio produced. But before the company's dissolution, they will release one final game, being Okami.
Okami was the final game that the studio would both release and develop, being released on April 20th, 2006. This game was original and had many aspects that presents the talent of the studio. It's clear that the beauty of the game has been noticed in recent years, as it was announced that the game has a sequel in development, with the development of the game being done by a new studio that was founded by Hideki Kamiya, being Clover's Inc., with the studio clearly being named as the spiritual successor to the now dissolved Clover Studio. Okami is a game that is quite different from other games, from its art style to its gameplay, with it being a mix of many different genres. The main concept of the game is nature and healing, being expressed through every aspect of the game. That is something that becomes quite a lovable aspect. The nature concept for the game was originally suggested by Hideki Kamiya when he spoke about his nostalgia for the Japanese countryside in an interview. Many of the initial ideas for the game came from Kamiya himself, and this led to the game having a stronger concept and a base start. The team for Okami saw the game as a challenge that was worth the risk that it would take to create the game, as a failure in the game would hit the company hard. And sadly, this is exactly what happened. During the development of the game, the team had fun creating the world and the characters for Okami, and this is clear from the quality and the vibe of the game. The world and the story of the game were handled by Kamiya too, making this game basically an imagination child of Kamiya's, with him being the director for the project as well. The music for the game was created by a variety of composers, being led by Masamu Ueda, who created the music from modified traditional Japanese sound. I could continue on and on about the development for the game, but we're here to talk about the complete, actual finished game, right? I want to talk about the different aspects of the game. So we'll talk about the world and the characters, then the art style, the music, gameplay, and then finishing up with the story and the adventure of the game. I plan on covering most, if not all, aspects of the game, so there will be spoilers for the gameplay and the story. But before we dive into Okami, I want to say that if you think this game looks fun to play, then go play the game first and then come back. It's an unforgettable experience. But if you want to hear me talk about an almost 20-year-old game, then grab a snack and thank you for watching. The protagonist for Okami is, of course, Amaterasu. Amaterasu is a god from the celestial plane that battles against the forms of evil that threaten the world. Amaterasu is seen and recognized as a female in the game, being called the mother of the 13 brush gods. Despite being in the form of a wolf, Amaterasu is quite expressionless, but also has a lot of expression. And this was intentional design to create a sense of wonder of what's going on in her head. Throughout the game, all the talking is done by her companion, Isun. Isun is a tiny character that comes from a tribe of tiny people with long lifespans. Isun is brash, foul-mouthed, and quite lecherous, with all of these qualities making him very memorable. Isun serves as the navigator and the voice of the pair throughout the journey through Nippon. The character dynamic between Isun and Amaterasu is perfect, with Amaterasu looking clueless, with Isun rambling on and on. The pair work well together, with Isun being able to tell what Amaterasu is thinking despite her not even speaking and almost never even making a real facial expression. The story of our game takes place in the country of Nippon. This is another word used for saying Japan, primarily used when trying to convey a strong sense of traditional national sentiment. The game takes place in the time of feudal Japan, being mythologized with gods, sprites, demons, and yokai all being real. The people of the world live in the mortal plane, with the gods of the world having lived in the celestial plane that resides above the mortal plane. The people of Nippon are constantly at threat from yokai and demons, with most normal people being unable to fight against these threats. The people of the world are in a time of struggle, and the evil of the world has weakened their belief in the gods, which actually weakens the gods even more. The people of the world have legends and stories of the events that happened in the past, and this adds to the overall world and lore of Okami. But the specifics of those legends we'll get into later. There are many locations in the game that each have their own specific theme that establishes a strong foundation for the world. The village of Kamiki is in the countryside, with many houses reflecting that being made of wood. In contrast, the capital, Seian City, is a city built and designed entirely like an Edo period city. And in the north, there is a village built in a snowy landscape. There are plains, wetlands, snowscapes, and coasts that are all areas throughout the game, depicting various forms of nature. These places express beauty and reinforce the nature concept that the game is centered around. The game presents nature so well, entering the capital actually feels odd and unnatural, no pun intended. Throughout the game, these different scenes of nature have to be restored as they've been corrupted and the life being brought back sends thrills and a rush to see the progress. In the beginning of both the game and the story, Nippon is covered in darkness and curse zones that destroy the nature. The trees become withered husks and the land is dead. Throughout the game, this beauty of nature is restored, enhancing the healing feeling that the game portrays. All of this would be meaningless if the game could not be properly portrayed. And thankfully, this is where the beautiful art style of the game shows its brilliance. The art style for the game is arguably the best part of the game, being of course the first thing that you see, but it's also what makes Okami. The game uses a style of traditional Japanese artwork throughout the game in both drawings and in cutscenes. The sumie brush has been imported in Japan for a very long time, and the game centers its art style and its gameplay around this. Other than in the drawing and the cutscenes, in the traditional art style, the game itself looks like it's drawn with strokes of a sumie brush. You can see that many of the lines are not exactly straight or perfect, and this gives the game a very unique look. Some of the lines are thicker than the others and some thinner, reinforcing the look that everything was drawn by a brush. The art style of the game is clear to the experience, with everything looking as if it was drawn with brushwork. It makes the game feel more natural. I can say that the sumie brush inspired type of shell shading is actually what makes the game look so beautiful, bringing out this unique feel and look to nature that I haven't seen anywhere else. It's a style that is different from other games of its time, straying from realism that was more commonly used, and going for a more cartoonish, picturesque style. The feudal Japanese style doesn't stop at just the world and the gameplay, it also extends to the menus. The menu, that is constantly open to check information and use and equip items, is styled in a way that is beautiful. In modern day games, there are many games that have strong menus and interfaces that break away from the very simplistic ones that focus on efficiency rather than design. The Persona games are strong examples of these, especially in the new generation of games, both being modern examples of expressive menu design that adds to the experience, straying away from static menu boxes that were quite common. Okami is a game that falls into this category years before both of these titles were either released or remastered. The menu is open with a traditional Japanese fan, with a scroll being rolled over top, with the scroll having beautiful artwork of Amaterasu that changes depending on what is equipped. Everything in the menu is written on scrolls that add a lot of personality to the menu, with the tab that holds the brush techniques having an interesting presentation. Overall, the art style for the game is both unique and beautiful, all while adding to the experience and the vibe of Okami. The other aspect to the game that enhances this vibe is the game's music. The music for Okami is phenomenal. And like the art style, the game's music is also inspired by traditional Japanese sounds. The music for the game is not entirely a recreation of traditional Japanese sounds, as it incorporates modern composition techniques to enhance the sound and increase the expression of the music. There were many instruments that were used, with some of them being the shime daiko, the suzumi, the kontiki, and harps, and others to create a sound that matches what the game was going for. The lead composer for the game, Masamu Ueda, said that going for a traditional Japanese style couldn't produce the sound that the game needed, as they sounded more darker and couldn't portray a wide range of emotions. The music became a mix of Western styles and traditional Japanese styles to make music for the game that matches the healing theme that the world of the game presents. There was a lot of effort and thought that went into the OST for Okami, with there being many steps and changes to match the tone for the different events that happen in the game. I found this quite interesting and did a bit of research, so if you want a deeper dive into the creation of the music, I'll link an article with the lead composer. Now that we've dived into both the art style and the music, I want to discuss the best part of the game, being the gameplay itself. The gameplay for the game is quite simple, but engaging. Like with most games, there are more features and mechanics added throughout the game. The gameplay loop is simple, with the characters going to complete a mission to progress the story, and Amaterasu gains a new power that adds a new mechanic. Collecting these powers is one of the main objectives of the game, being one of the main steps to saving the world. The dungeons in the game all have puzzles that require both new and old powers to complete them. There are puzzles outside of the dungeon that also need to be solved for the rest of the game. Before getting into the puzzles, let's discuss the basic aspects of the game. Amaterasu has a health bar that can be seen in the top left corner of the screen, with the ink bottle amount underneath. An ink bottle charge is required to perform the powers that Amaterasu has. Amaterasu has all the basic movements with her running and jumping, with their movement being able to be upgraded throughout the game. Throughout the game, Amaterasu can gain praise by helping people, feeding animals, and restoring nature.
Amaterasu accesses the shrine, and Isu reminds her that it's almost time for the annual festival in Kamiki Village. They head to Kamiki Village, and when they arrive, everyone is gathered around Susanoo's house. After listening to the villagers, we learn that Susanoo drank all the sacred sake, something that is required to defeat Orochi. Everyone is upset, wondering why he would do something like that at a time like this, especially on the day exactly 100 years after Orochi was slain. After being scolded by Mr. Orange, Susanoo reveals that he was the one that unsealed Orochi, being that he was the one that pulled Tsukiyomi from the Moon Cave. He explains that he was sick of being the descendant of Nagi and the responsibility that came with it, so he pulled the sword to prove that it was all fate, fleeing from the cave and pushing the boulder to block off the village. The events that have happened in the story have made him think that the gods were showing their wrath until he slew Orochi like his ancestor Nagi did. Then, suddenly, Orochi's power makes an arrow appear, like in the legend, and this arrow strikes the house of the person that is supposed to be the sacrifice. This arrow flew past the villagers, landing on Kushi's house. Kushi accepts her fate, but says that she knows that Susanoo will come. She changes into her sacrificial robe and grabs a special thunder brew, being a sake that she invented. She then runs off to the moon cave with Amaterasu following after her. Amaterasu finds her fallen down just outside the village, and Amaterasu decides to help her, understanding her resolve of wanting to defeat Orochi with her sake. They make their way to the moon cave with them finding Waka at the entrance to the cave. Waka knew they would come and breaks the barrier using a serpent crystal from Gale's shrine. Waka tells Amaterasu to stay behind and leave Orochi to him, but then one of Orochi's heads shoot out the cave and grabs Kushi, with Amaterasu following after. After entering the cave, the barrier reappears, and the pair are trapped in there. Isu feels set up, but Waka says that they had the intention of going in anyways. Amaterasu tries to head to the sacrificial area, but the stairs are broken, so they make their way down into the cave. While traversing through Orochi's lair, they come across the bush god Moegami. Moegami is the god of flames and bestows the ability to control fire. After meeting the requirements, the pair are raised into the sacrificial area to save Kushi. When they get to the area, Amaterasu sees Kushi and runs to save her, but then Orochi appears from the ground, confronting Amaterasu. Orochi drinks the Thunder Brew, and then the two begin to battle. And during the battle, it looks like Kushi will be eaten, but then Susanoo arrives, halting the beast. Orochi tries to tempt Susanoo into a blood pact for power, but Susanoo refuses with a heroic speech. While they were talking, Amaterasu tips the Thunder Brew sake into the pool, making pockets of it that will be used in his battle against the beast again. After getting Orochi beaten down, Susanoo comes to help finish off the beast. Like the legend, he gains the power of the moon, using Ami's help. The final attack on Orochi is done with Susanoo's own power, without Ami's help at all. Susanoo finished the beast off, catching and saving Kushi, with him apologizing for letting evil cloud his judgment. Kushi cheers for him, and then the battle comes to an end. But no one realized that a dark cloud had escaped from Orochi's corpse, splitting off and flying in all directions. With the defeat of Orochi, Kamiki Village enjoys peace, and then they throw another festival. After the festival, the pair leave the village and are met with Sakia. She speaks on the black mist that came from Orochi and that there are more parts of Nippon that have not been fully restored. So Isun and Ami head to the capital. After making the drawbridge fall, they make their way to Hiroshima coast, and there they restore the guardian sapling. When they reach the capital, they see that there's a green mist plaguing the area, making everyone in the capital sick. They also hear that the water dragon has been terrorizing the seas, restricting the flow of water and trade to the capital. And with all these problems, the people are wondering why the queen is locking herself away and not helping. Amaterasu helps a carpenter unplug the lake, restoring the waters to the canals. After helping a traveler catch a rare fish, the bridge is lit up, and they continue towards the palace. They come across Waka and have a conversation about the state of the capital, and the pair continues on, meeting Rao, a regent of the capital appointed by the queen. She speaks on her lost spell papers, and after exploring, Ami finds them, and then they are returned. After getting the spell papers back, she asks for help in getting the treasure on the sunken ship, and she says that the ship has been sunken due to the rampaging water dragon. There is treasure on the ship that the Queen Himiko ordered, so that she can clear up the mist that is plaguing the capital. Ami heads to Ryoshima Coast to open a path to the sunken ship. Rao joins at the entrance to the ship, and with their help, the group makes their way through the ship. In the deepest part of the ship, they find the Lucky Mallet, which is an item that can make the user tiny, but they do not find the treasure that Rao was looking for. When leaving the ship, they are chased by the water dragon, with Rao hopping away. They return to the capital, and with the Lucky Mallet, they are able to sneak into a crack that leads to the Emperor's chambers. After being shrunken down, we can see what Isun looks like from his perspective, and how the world looks like to him. On the way to the Emperor's chambers, they come across a person that was locked up for no apparent reason, with her being the granddaughter of Mr. Bamboo from Kusa Village. They promise to let her out and continue on, coming across a treasure room that has another constellation sealed away. After they release the constellation, they find out that it is the brush god Kasugami, who has the power to control mist. With his power, Amaterasu can slow down the time of things that are in the mist. With his power, they sneak their way to the Emperor, with the Emperor being the source of the green mist infecting the capital. They enter his body to find the source, and they come across the demon Blight, and the cursed sword Golden Nail that is the cause of the green mist. After defeating Blight, one of the black mist spirits that left Orochi came from the armor, with it fleeing away. Instead of waking the Emperor up, they gain control of his body and free Kaguya from her cell. They then are sneezed out of the Emperor's body. On the way out of the palace, Kaguya refused that she does not know where she's truly from, but that she has a faint memory that's calling out to her. She then runs off to the location to get answers. The pair follow her to the crest that she spoke of, with Mr. Bamboo already being there. The crest reacts to her, with the ground exploding, so Ami helps her dig with a rocket ship coming out of the ground. After a touching moment with Mr. Bamboo, she leaves to search out for answers about her past. But before she leaves, she gives Amaterasu a fire tablet. This tablet made Amaterasu immune to fire, and this also allowed for her to enter the Queen's palace. After making their way to Queen Himiko, she explains the situation. She reveals that she has understood the plight of her people, but she could not be found. She was using her prayers to locate the base of the cursed monsters, being Oni Island. But the problem is that the island moves constantly, changing locations every day. If the enemy knew about the crystal ball that she was using to try to locate the Oni Island, they would surely target her. So she has been hiding, trying to locate the island. She explains that the water dragon is required to reach the island because of the barrier located around it. So she sends the pair to the Dragonian kingdom that is said to control the water dragon. After heading to the North Ryoshima coast, they are deemed worthy to enter the palace, but first they have to find the entrance to the kingdom, with the entrance being hidden to keep out evil. While riding the escort Orca, they come across a cat island with a giant tower. They climb the tower and find another constellation containing a god. This is the brush god Kabegami, with it being the god of walls, and this god bestows the ability to climb walls. With this new power, they were able to reach the area that can open up the whirlpool to the Dragonian kingdom. They then make their way into the kingdom. They meet the leader of the Dragonians, Otohime. She explains that the water dragon is their deity, being the protector of the sea, but that it changed a month ago. At the time, Oni Island appeared, and dark beings flooded into the sea, attacking the water palace. The water dragon came to the rescue, but the enemy leader, the Dark Lord, was too strong. The water dragon suffered terrible wounds that caused him to fly into an uncontrollable rage. She explains that the water dragon cannot be controlled, but with something called the dragon orb, she could break the barrier. But this orb is inside the dragon itself, so they head into the water dragon to get the orb. And after entering the water dragon, they find it and break the orb free. They are attacked by demons, and when they are defeated, they leave behind a pair of fox rods, the item that Himiko had ordered from the sunken ship. Taking this orb caused the water dragon to begin to die, and after leaving the water dragon, the spirit of the king of the Dragonians thanks them, as he was the water dragon transformed. They are then met with Rao, with Amaterasu trusting her to deliver the fox rods to the queen. After this, they return to Queen Otohime and relay what happened, with them handing over the dragon orb. The queen thanks them and says that the previous king had transformed into the water dragon to protect the Dragonian kingdom. And then Isun tells her that they gave the fox rods to Rao. While they are talking about the credibility of Rao, the dragon orb comes and shows an event of the past. This event shows Rao walking at night and being attacked by what seems to be a giant monster. At the sight of this vision, Amaterasu dashes out the room without explaining anything to the queen, that they are making their way back to the capital. They reach the capital and make their way to the queen's chambers. There they are met with the dead body of the queen, with the Rao cowering in the corner, speaking of a monster. Isun is confused about the scene, but Amaterasu understands almost immediately, despite the ruse. It is then revealed that Rao is an evil being on the side of darkness, and that the original Rao was killed by a monster shown in the dragon orb scene. She explains that it's hopeless for them, as they don't have the water dragon and the queen is dead, no longer being able to use the power of the crystal ball. She says that this is all thanks to them returning the fox rods to her, giving her power beyond imagination. She swallows the crystal ball to make sure they can't be used again, and then Amaterasu and her begin a battle. At the end of the fight, Rao is knocked into a pillar, with her spitting out the crystal ball because of the impact, but she is not defeated. She then transforms into her true form, being a massive beast. The monster introduces itself as the Dark Lord and quickly defeats Amaterasu, showing a fraction of the monster's power. It then teleports away to Oni Island. After this, the pair were dejected, with there being no other leads into the location of Oni Island, and now the Queen Himiko was killed. They began to think that this was the end of their journey, but then the blood-soaked crystal ball spewed an image of Himiko. Himiko explains that finding the location of Oni Island would be difficult, and that she let herself become infused with the crystal ball to search for answers. Himiko's will, infused with the crystal, created great power. With it, she was able to find the location of Oni Island. She explains that the island will appear off the coast of Watcher's Cape at sunset, and will disappear once the sun has completely set. After conveying this information, the crystal ball begins to crack, with her soul being intertwined. So, as the crystal ball shatters, her soul continued to the afterlife. With the sun beginning to set, they make a beeline to the Watcher's Cape, worrying about the barrier when they get there. When they reach Watcher's Cape, they are met with the Queen Otohime. Queen Otohime explains that Himiko's regret reached even the Dragonian Kingdom, informing her of the situation. Isu explains that it's pointless as without the water dragon they can't break the barrier around the island. Otohime says that there is hope, with her using the orb to actually transform herself into the water dragon. She uses her long body to break a path into the barrier, and Amaterasu uses this path to reach Oni Island. They enter the Dark Fortress and make their way through the maze. While going through the fortress, they come across another constellation, this being the brush god Gekikami, the god of thunder, who bestows the ability to control thunder. With them racing through the fortress against a demon named Toby, with them reaching the top of the tower, after going through all the traps and puzzles. At the top, they find another constellation. They put the stars in the right formation, and it summons the monster from before, being a Ninetales. It says that it's been made the Lord of Yoshima Coast by the Lord of Darkness, Yami. Amaterasu battles the beast, and in a tough fight, it results in Amaterasu being victorious. With the defeat of the Ninetales, Himiko and Rao had been avenged. A black mist flowed from the course as Oni Island began to disappear without its leader. The mist flew into the sky, being met with the black mist that escaped from the Blight, the armor and the sword that caused the green mist in the capital. With them merging together and escaping north, Isun began to feel sad as their journey was close to being over, as they had already collected 12 of the 13 brush gods. But their next target was the north, so they prepared to make their journey there. After reaching the coast, they are met with Waka that tells them that the storm is happening at Shinshu Field, and the hint that Waka gives is that they will need thunder to open something. They head to Shinshu Field and open a structure that has a path that leads to the north. The farthest part of Nippon is known as Kamui, being a snow-covered landscape. They make their way to find shelter, coming across a hut with the man that puts Hami in a fighting stance. They leave the hut, and a battle begins between the two. During the battle, the man transforms into a wolf, and the fight continues with the man being satisfied. He introduces himself as Oki, a warrior of the Ona tribe. Being a tribe that has the ability to transform into wolves, this turned out to be someone that Isun knows. Oki asks why Isun decided to even come back after running away in disgust, and Isun asks why he had the special sword. He says simply that it was the time to use it, but he continues to explain the situation in Kamui. Kamui is a cold, harsh land that is difficult to survive in, but the owner have managed thanks to the Enzo Fuji Mountains. But the mountains have been taken over by demons. The demons that took over the mountain were the twin demons Letku and Netku, who were sealed in the summits of the mountain. They broke free one day, and during their search for something, they slaughtered all the owner tribe they came across. And as they continued to destroy the land, the earth continued to lose power. He ends with the village will be an icy tomb if the demons continue, but he speaks on a prophecy of salvation that is tied to the sword that he wields. They continue on fighting the guardian sapling and restore the land to its former glory. They make their way to Wepkir village, being the owner's village. While going through the village, they find no one until they reach the house of the village elder. At the elder's house, they meet Samikul, the top warrior of the owner, who basically drives them off, not answering any of their questions. Isun has been in this village in the past and is confused by some of the things that Samikul says, like him being the chief of the village now, but says that the elder has not passed away, but simply is resting. They make their way out of the village, with them being stopped by Kai, an old friend of Isun's. She then takes them to her house, and she explains what happened over the past year. She explains that the twin demons were enshrined in the Waku shrine, but one day they suddenly broke free and the blizzard started in Kamui. Kemu, the village elder, went to the shrine to pacify them, but they were too strong, and Samiko was barely able to get him out of there alive. The demons became more violent, covering Kamui in a thick layer of ice, and the people can't do anything about the demons. It is said that Kamui is the land of darkness, and that all the demons in the world came from here. It is thought that the demons are making their way back there now. She notes that the black shadow flew overhead a few days ago, entering the shrine, and then that's when the blizzard got stronger. She explains that all of this happened is why Oki left the village taking the sacred sword Katone without permission, saying that he would chase the demons off himself. She finishes off saying that her sister has gone missing and that she's the key to saving the village, and at this time the village elder calls for the pair. They go to the elder's house. There he explains that Lika is the missing sister and the key to saving the village. There is a ritual dance that needs to be performed that will cause the mountains to erupt, heating up Kamui. The elder can no longer perform the dance, but Lika has an immense amount of spiritual power, and this is the next person that can perform the dance. He explains that they have looked everywhere for her, but Yosef Forest asks that they go find her. They find the shaman so she can open a path to Yosef. She explains that things have gotten worse since that black mist came from the south, noting that this was probably what revived them. The reason that Kamui is called the birthplace of evil is because of the Ark of Yamato, stuck in Laochi Lake. The Ark fell from the celestial plane located above the mortal plane. The Ark fell into the lake as the gods of the celestial plane, were running from something. But they didn't know that the monsters were already on the boat, consuming and slaughtering all the celestials on board the Ark. All the celestials were killed except for one, with the monsters flooding. All the celestials were killed except for one, with the monsters flooding out of the Ark when it crashed into the lake. She gives them a crest that will allow them to enter the forest, and they head off to do so. With Kai as their navigator, they make their way through the forest until they reach the village of the Ponkles, being Isu's birthplace. Isu doesn't want to enter the village, so Amaterasu goes in alone to get information. And in there, she comes across the village elder, Ishaku, who traveled with Amaterasu's previous incarnation, Shiranui, in the past. Ishaku is also Isu's grandfather, being the sixth celestial envoy. Celestial envoys are poneglyphs that travel across the world, drawing and reminding the people of the gods, which gives the gods their powers. Isu ran from the village, not caring about being a celestial envoy, angering his grandfather. Amaterasu silently asks about the spirit gate as one girl in the village says she saw Lika being taken inside the gate. The grandfather refuses to open the gate and Amaterasu leaves the village. Isun and Ami head to the spirit gate with Isun going to be the one to open the gate with his sword. Oki then shows up, entering the gate before the pair does, and he does this in his quest to make the sword shine silver, granting him the power to save the village. They enter after him and end up in Kamiki village, but not the village that they know. It is the Kamiki village of 100 years ago, before Nagi and Shiranui defeated Orochi. They recreate the legend, bringing Nagi to the moon cave, finding Lika on Orochi's back this time. But then Oki shows up, and being quickly defeated due to his stubbornness to make the sword activate. After a battle with the beast, Nagi shows up and, like the legend, defeats Orochi. Amaterasu saves Liko, and everyone rejoices, except for Oki, who lurks in the shadows. But then the place begins to collapse. A boulder almost crushes Nagi, but then Shiranui comes and saves Nagi, but is then injured. Nagi carries it away, and everyone gets out of there with them appearing back in Yosep Forest. They return to the village with Liko, but everyone is busy trying to close the gate of Waku's shrine as the solar eclipse draws near. If the solar eclipse completes without the ritual being performed, then all hope is lost. While the villagers set up and perform the ritual, Amaterasu enters the shrine to deal with the twin demons. They enter the shrine and shut off the machine that is causing the blizzard, and here they meet the final brush god, Itegami, being the god of ice. He then bestows on them the power to control ice. Then all the brush gods come together to form the solar flare reflector. They continue through the shrine until they reach the top, being met with one of the twin demons, the silver demon Netku. Shiranui appears, and with his help, Amaterasu begins battle with the demon, with them coming out victorious easily. Before the demon could be finished off, the other demon bursts into the battle with Oki riding and slashing the demon. He is knocked off and then transformed, saying the Kantone will shine. The twin demons begin to prepare a strong attack and Oki rushes forward, with Shiranui trying to stop him, but he rushes past regardless. The twin demons stop time with Oki mid-air, and they prepare to hit Oki with a fatal attack. Despite time being frozen, Shiranui rushes in, saving Oki, taking the attack and countering, but it sends Shiranui flying towards an edge. The demons retreat, and Oki is left with the decision of saving Amaterasu as helping Shiranui, or chase the demons. He chooses to save his savior, and this is the decision that causes the sword to shine. He understands now that the sword will not shine because its wielder's heart was clouded, and now understanding his own selfishness, he gained the power to protect the village. Amaterasu heads off to chase the twin demons, with Oki staying to protect Shiranui. Isun and Amaterasu catch up with the demons, preparing for battle, when Oki comes for support. Oki explains that someone named Ishaku came and Shiranui began to feel better, so he made his way to them. They battled the twin demons, coming out victorious. The demons were defeated, but then a giant mass of black mist, being a collection of the Blight, the Ninetales, and now the defeated twin demons, flowed from the bodies, retreating into the Ark of Yamato. They then went to Shiranui, injured and exhausted, who was now feeling better thanks to Ishaku's presence. Shiranui arose, using all of its strength, and began to walk to Ishaku's gate back to their time, to their home. But the wolf had a faint grin, seeing a small glimmer of hope that it was leaving behind. Shiranui had gave his life to help them in their quest, and would lose his life due to the wounds, and would mark the beginning of the legend of Orochi. At the same time, Lika finished the ritual, causing the Enzo Fuji peaks to erupt, warming the area back up. Oki was then met with Sumiko, with his hand stretched, reforging the village into one that would never fall victim again. Oki returned Kutone to his rightful place, and this called Lauchi Lake the Crack. The lake burst open as the Ark of Yamato rose from the ice, with it now hovering over the lake. A door to the Ark opens, and a bridge from this door appears, so Amaterasu makes her way to the ship. When they get to the door, Isun tells Amaterasu that this is where their paths split, and he tries to leave with Ami trying to stop him. Waka then appears and says that Isun is simply just afraid of the legend of the Ark. He continues to say regardless, he cannot board it as only people worthy can take this ride. Isun takes offense and tries to enter the ship, but is repelled at the door. He called Isun a little celestial envoy, and then bridge disappears with Isun falling, cementing that he won't be coming. Waka then gives Isun his last hint, being that it takes two to tango, and that the power of the brush will intercede. After this, Waka and Amaterasu head into the ship for the final battle. Inside the ship, Amaterasu comes across ghosts of celestials lingering about. They explain what happened to the celestials in the past, one of the celestials being Hakuba. There was a battle happening on the celestial plane, and the celestials boarded the ship that was built by the lunar civilization to escape. But they didn't know the ship was made to transport monsters. The monsters broke free and slaughtered all the celestials on the ship, with the Ark crashing into the lake soon after. She doesn't know why they built the ship to transport monsters, but the place became a nest for evil beings. Amaterasu continues through the ship, defeating the powerful monsters that are in it. Amaterasu then comes across another celestial being, Sato, who explains, the same as Hakama, but further explains that Orochi was the beast that attacked the celestial plane. It came from the stars and destroyed the celestial plane, and then went on to cause the events that it did in the mortal plane. He finishes saying that maybe this is something that was preordained by the Moon Tribe, being the ones that built the ship. Ami comes across another celestial that explains what Amaterasu did in the past. She explains that Amaterasu and Orochi battled and fell to the mortal plane, with Amaterasu escaping and waited for the Chosen One to be born. The Chosen One was Nagi, and with Nagi, Amaterasu defeated Orochi. But that was just a ripple in the darkness. And 100 years after being defeated, Orochi collected his power, and when Susanoo broke free from his spell, his revival was complete. After defeating Orochi again with Susanoo, it began the next part of his plan, cursing the land, spreading monsters from the ark, powering it up with his essence. With this event, the power of darkness fled in evil, and as each of the evil powers, being the Blight, the Nine-Tails, and the Twin Demons were defeated, they retreated back to the Ark of Yamato, being their origin. After defeating the final beast, Azumi, the last celestial spoken to, says that they will forever be thankful to the golden-haired man of the Moon Tribe that fought Orochi alongside Amaterasu in the celestial plane. After reaching the farthest point in the arc, Amaterasu comes across Waka fighting the source of the evil. He says that this brings back memories of them fighting together in the celestial plane, and he explains that the being standing in front of them is Yami, the ruler of darkness. The solar eclipse begins to reach its peak, and Yami attacks Amaterasu, forcefully ripping the brush gods from her, taking her power for itself. And Waka jumps in, defending Amaterasu from the deadly beam. Waka confesses that it was his fault that countless people died, as he was the one that brought the Ark of Yamato to the Celestials. He understands that he can't take back his actions, but he continues to protect Amaterasu, and is blue back, revealing his golden hair. He thanks Amaterasu for trusting him when he predicted the Chosen One, despite him being part of the Moon Tribe. He finally tells Ami that she must return to the Celestial Plane, then he is blasted off the platform. Despite losing her powers and being weakened, Amaterasu gets up and begins the final battle. In the battle with Yami, Amaterasu attacks and breaks too slowly, gaining the Brush God powers back until they have all returned to her. She wins the battle and sees Isun tells her to give a victory howl, but he's not really there. She goes to give a howl and is grabbed by Yami, shocking all of her power from her again. Amaterasu is then at her weakest, and then she hears the prayers of those that she met during her journey. With all of them praying for her victory. This is all thanks to Isun. Isun traveled around Nippon, giving out art of Amaterasu, reminding the people of her, and tells them to give their prayers to her to take on some of her burden. Isun has accepted his role and his fate as celestial envoy, helping Amaterasu, doing what he can only do. With these prayers, Amaterasu is able to regain her power and grow even stronger beyond that. With these newfound powers, she is able to defeat Yami, ending in a victory howl. After this, Waka comes back into the flying device, congratulating Amaterasu. Amaterasu jumps in and Waka starts the ship up so that they can finally head to the Celestial Plane. They head to restore the Celestial Plane that had been destroyed during Orochi's attack. Isun and Sakyo watch as the ship soars through the air. Isun says that he's gonna make sure that Amaterasu has so many followers, she won't know what to do with all of them, doing his best as his job as a celestial envoy. And our game ends with Amaterasu heading to start her next journey in the celestial plane. And that was Okami. I gotta say that this game was a lot different from what I expected. This game was fun all the way through, being an experience that I continue to think about. The gameplay is fun in both the exploration, the combat, and the puzzles. I tend to hate puzzles in games, but the puzzles in Okami feel just right, so you don't have to be super good at puzzles to solve most of them. With just a little bit of looking around and exploring, you can find most of the answers to the puzzles. The combat was fun, and of course, it doesn't have the depth of something from, I guess you could say, a platinum title, but it doesn't need that. The combat fits the game with it having just the right amount of depth. The exploration feels like you're making a journey through nature, which I think is one of the strongest aspects of the game. But to wrap up this however long video, I want more people to try this game, as I think it's a genuine gem of time. It's been confirmed that Okami 2 is currently in development, and I think that this would be the perfect time to get into the series. So if this game seemed like a fun time, or just a time killer I guess, I want you to play the game. Then finally, I have a lot of ideas for videos, and I plan on making the next video a bit of a different one. So stay tuned for that. But I want to say thank you for watching. We talk about a game that has been almost out for 2 decades. And if you think this video was cool, like and subscribe so you can see the next thing that I upload. But once again, thank you for watching.